Hi, I'm Janice Switlow, and I've emphasized over the years how critical it is to be absolutely accurate and careful in the words used in your statements, in your declarations, and of course in pleadings, in court cases, all of that. And I want to touch upon today the importance of even a single word. There are sadly, declarations made by people whose intentions are to say, hey, I'm still here, we're a nation, we're sovereign, we still own. But unfortunately, they're getting advice and, they're not writing these, and lawyers or lawyer types are doing so, and they're using language that carries with it definitions contained in the Section 35 doctrine, which of course completely undermines from the get-go everything that was intended to be achieved by the Declaration. Instead of it actually saying, hey, we're still here, because those words are used, consultation, accommodation, endorsing Section 35 doctrine, because those terms are used, you're actually capitulating in public by a public document. You're evidencing that you're not precisely the opposite of what your intention was behind actually doing this. And this is so fraught with danger. And the reason, people can't go the distance. It's like they say, okay, sovereignty, but as redefined by Harvard, the concept of sovereign internal to your local jurisdictions, which, is talking about municipal type models. And people are desperately trying to use domestic law in order to enforce what are actually international matters. You can't do that. And I'm going to explain in a further episode that, you really have, well, I'll do that here. You really have questions that are either domestic and can be addressed by the courts and thus are justiciable, or they're not justiciable. As Ian Binney, when he was Supreme Court of Canada judge, warned. He says, you're bringing things forward that really, I get it, but I can't decide it, because these are the unspoken part. These are international matters. They are not contained within the domestic jurisdiction of Canada. So why would you, when making a declaration to remind the world, for example, and of course, that's how it ought to be done, not a letter addressed to the Prime Minister, but telling the world we're still here, here's what our status is in law, here's who we are, and yet be using domestic terms. International entities can't even listen to you, can't even read that, because you're saying right away, this cannot concern you, this is a domestic Canadian matter governed by Canadian law. So no UN member state is going to ever interfere in that. So what message have you actually sent? There's, in my next episode, I'm going to talk about, people doing constitutional challenges and similar issues, and the dangers fraught with not really knowing what you're doing and what you're playing with. So I want to move to a couple of quotes, if I may, to sort of set the stage a little bit further on the use of the word, right? And the irony, okay? Again, earlier I had spoken how Canada's Constitution, Section 35, is supposed to all be kind of under God. And this set, the establishment of partial political sovereignty here, basically a Christianity-based sovereignty, because the Queen is head of her religion. And so the irony, as you'll soon see, it said, words are far from being impotent. The devil uses them constantly in political propaganda and commercial exploitation. Now, Indigenous nationals should relate to that, not as that being a strategy against them. And if his lies are powerful, James Stalker put it like this: it seems the frailest of all weapons for what is a word. It is only a puff of air, a vibration, trembling in the atmosphere for a moment and then disappearing. Yet, though it be only a weapon of air, the word is stronger than the sword of the warrior. And Martin Luther also warned and explained the power that word can contain. He was translated. This hymn was translated in 1831 by Thomas Carlyle. It says in English, "And were this world all devils over, and watching to devour us, we lay it not to heart so sore, nor they can overpower us. And let the prince of ill look grim as e'er he will, he harms us not a whit. For why? His doom is writ, a word shall quickly slay him." Indigenous nationals do not understand or realize that by use of a single word in a statement, a press release, a declaration, that single word can serve to slay the nation. And there was also further quote. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, 1970 Nobel Prize winner, in his speech, he called it "one word of truth." He said, "In this cruel, dynamic, explosive world on the brink of a dozen destructions, what is the place and role of the writer? We writers have no rockets to blast off. We do not even trundle the most insignificant auxiliary vehicle. We are indeed altogether despised by those who respect only material power. So what can writers do, quote, in the face of the merciless onslaught of open violence, especially when violence is bound up with the lie, and the lie can be maintained only by violence?" Of course, now keep in mind, Canada has passed the Anti-Terrorism Act, which individual Indigenous nations have to be very careful that they can easily trigger application to them. Of course, the courageous person will refuse to take part in the lie, but he continued, quote, "Writers and artists can do something more. They can vanquish the lie. We must not seek excuses on the grounds that we lack weapons. We must go out into battle. One word of truth outweighs the whole world. And on such a fantastic breach of the law of conservation of mass and energy are based my own activities and my appeal to the writers of the world. Not," he continues, "that our words are always heeded. Often they are ineffective. They fall on deaf ears and are disregarded." If there's anything that I can leave you with, is this: what words are you using? If your great-grandfather never would have used that word, you don't. Don't have lawyers writing for you. You know who you are. You know what nation you're part of. You know how to say, "This is who I am. We have always been here. This is ours. It's our responsibility to protect. We only granted permissions to the Crown for partial political sovereignty. We did not sell the lands. We cannot even under our Indigenous laws do that. And it's the law of the land that applies. So when the Crown came here to this part of the world, it was our Indigenous laws that dictated and governed the dealings. And just as the treaties themselves actually confirm through the use of the words to have and to hold, this was not a sale. This was merely a granting of permissions of use. And do not risk saying to the world by the wrong word, using the wrong word, "No, we've always been under Canada." Do not sign off on a document that says we're always been under Section 35. Yes, when that happened, somehow our laws got merged. Somehow we became under and part of common law. None of that makes any sense. And if you have to defer and say at the end of the day, as has been said to me recently, I didn't know the law. I'm not a lawyer. These lawyers did it. My question is to you, why are you allowing others to speak for you? Are they part of your nation? Did the great-grandfathers pass on information to them? Were they trained and guided and part of? I'm not talking, adopted into and things like that. Why are you not speaking? Why are you not using your words? Stay away from trying to look too clever. Be very clear. You can say something in one paragraph that will protect and preserve your nations for all time. Think about that, please. Drop these words, drop consultation, drop accommodation, drop anything to do with Section 35. I beg you, please, if you're at all interested in preserving the treaties and protecting yourselves for next generations, your lands, your resources, your rights as human beings, it's critical to look at every word that you put out. And if those words have been put out and they do not convey your intention because you did not understand what the Section 35 doctrine, for example, really does, then let's get to work and let's do some cleanup and do some damage control and let's clarify the intent. That we can do, and I'm here to help. Thank you.